بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين أجل الله تعالى فرجه الشريف اللهم أخرجني من ظلمات الوهم وأكرمني بنور الفهم اللهم افتح علينا أبواب رحمتك وانشر علينا خزائن علومك برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. Alhamdulillah, we have tawfiq to continue our study of history of Shia Islam, and today we will inshallah complete the lesson on the 4th and 5th centuries by studying Ibn Sina. Ibn Sina, who is known in the West as Avicenna, is Hussein ibn Abdullah ibn Sina, and his nickname or kunya is Abu Ali. Therefore, sometimes they call Abu Ali Sina or Ibn Sina. Not that his father was Sina. His father was Abdullah ibn Sina. He is a great scholar and scientist of this period. He was born in 370 after Hijrah and died in 428. He lived only about 58 years, but he left great impact not only on the Muslim world but on the whole humanity, as we will explain inshallah. He was mathematician, he was astronomer, physicist, expert in chemistry, geography, geology, poet, logician, musician, philosopher, and even it is said that he taught, apart from philosophy or metaphysics, himself every science. He had some teachers, as we mentioned, but he was the main teacher for himself. In the time of the Samanids, and in particular Nuh ibn Mansur Samani, who ruled from 366 after Hijrah till 387 after Hijrah, he was close to the family of Ibn Sina. Ibn Sina with his family went to Bukhara, and from childhood, very young age, started learning Quran, literature, and it is said that at the age of 10 he had learned a lot about Quran, not necessarily tafsir, because tafsir has no end, but many sciences of Quran and literature. He learned geometry, algebra with Mahmud Mashahi. He learned basics of fiqh and logic from Ismail Zahid. When Abu Abdullah Natali went to Bukhara, father of Ibn Sina gave him a residence next to his house, and therefore Ibn Sina learned from Abu Abdullah Natali as well, some logic, some philosophy, but he himself said he didn't, learn much about from him, but he learned some from him. After that, he himself studied astronomy and geometry himself. When he learned these things, then he had interest in medicine, so he studied medicine. He continued his study of mathematics, philosophy, fiqh. So when he became 16, he was familiar with sciences of his time. But he didn't stop. This is interesting. He was not satisfied with, knowing a good level of every science. He wanted to know more and more. And according to Ibn Sina himself, whenever something, especially the most difficult subject for him was ilahiyat, theosophy, a kind of philosophy and theology. He says whenever he had some issues which were difficult for him, he used to go to the great or grand masjid al-Jami of the city and say salat and ask Allah to help him understand. So he was a very religious person as well. For understanding the book Metaphysica of Aristotle, metaphysics, as you know, metaphysics of Aristotle, which is philosophy, is called metaphysics because the students of Aristotle, when they compiled his works, they gave name to every section. Then there was a section which was not about a particular science, it was everything. That was philosophy. They called him Metaphysica because they put this section after the section on physics, tabi'iyat, which is about knowing the world, like natural sciences. Some people mistakenly think metaphysics means ma wara at-tabi'ah, means about supernatural things. No, this philosophy includes both physical, natural, as well as supernatural or immaterial things. It's not just about immaterial things. This is just a practical name because they put it after the section on tabi'iyat. Physics is tabi'iyat. Then this was after, they called it metaphysical, the section after tabi'iyat, because they didn't find a specific name for it. Anyway, Ibn Sina, who was able to understand most of the things by himself, had difficulty in understanding this section. And therefore, one day when he was going to, somewhere in the bazaar, he found someone is selling a book. This book was the book by Farabi, أغراض ما بعد الطبيعة. Farabi in this book had explained what Aristotle meant in the section ما بعد الطبيعة. Ibn Sina very much liked this and helped him to answer questions that he had, difficulties that he had, were clarified for him. So in the age of 18, then he became expert in all the sciences of his time. When Ibn Sina was just 17 years old, 387, Nuh ibn Mansur, who was Samanid ruler that we mentioned before, became very ill and physicians could not help him. Ibn Sina, with his young age, managed to find a treatment for him, bi'idhnillah, of course. and he was cured. Therefore, he very much loved Ibn Sina, and Ibn Sina got good position, therefore had access to the library of the king, which had many, many good books. In the year 392, when he was 22 years old, his father died, and therefore he had to go to Gorganj or Gorganaj, and he met other scientists and scholars like Abu Rayhan Biruni, Abu Nasr Iraqi, Abu Sahl, who was a Christian. Then in the year 402, the king Mahmud, Ghaznavid king, called him to his own court. But Ibn Sina didn't want to go to his court, and this is taken as one of the signs that he was a Shia, because Sultan Mahmud Ghaznavi was not, in good relation with the Shia. So then he went to Gorgan, or Jurjan as Arabs say, in northern Iran. Then he went to Ray, which is now where Hazrat Abdul Azim is there. And at that time, they knew Hazrat Abdul Azim in Ray. In Ray, for some time, he was in the system, in the court or governance of Buwayhids. There was a lady who was the widow of Fakhrud-Dawla Ali ibn Babawayh. Ali ibn Buwayh. Ali ibn Buwayh from Buwayhids. This widow became like the ruler, and Ibn Sina helped her. Especially it is said that her son, her child, had a mental problem, and Ibn Sina helped the cure. Not only he knew problems of body, he knew problems of the mind as well. Then he went to Qazwin. Then he went to Hamadan, and the governor there also had issues with health. Then he helped, so they liked him even more. He became minister of Shamsud-Dawla Daylami, the brother of Majdud-Dawla Daylami. Then he went to Isfahan and got very good position with Alauddawla in Isfahan, who was in charge of Isfahan. Every Thursday night he was organizing majlis, bringing scholars, scientists, and Ibn Sina was very superior to others. In the year 425, Mas'ud Ghaznavi, not Mahmud, Mas'ud Ghaznavi after that, he attacked Isfahan. Therefore Ibn Sina with Alauddawla himself, who was governing Isfahan, they went to Hamadan. And in Hamadan he became ill. And in the first day of the month of Ramadan, 428, in the age of 58, he died. Now his grave is in Hamadan. He was buried under the wall of the city, and then they moved it to the place which is now very historical monument is there for Ibn Sina. In philosophy, he is known as a Shi'i, as a peripatetic philosopher. someone who is loyal to the tradition of Aristotle and Farabi, but he expanded peripatetic philosophy, added many new issues to philosophy, and he was also able to discuss all the sciences of his time. There are hundreds of books and essays attributed to Ibn Sina. Among them, at least 131 works are certainly compiled by Ibn Sina. One is Ash-Shifa, another is An-Najat, another is Al-Isharat wa Tanbihat. Al-Isharat wa Tanbihat is a book that studies Tabi'iyat and Ilahiyat, and the 9th section of Al-Isharat wa Tanbihat is Maqamatul Arifin. It's one of the brief but masterpieces of Islamic mysticism. It's about stations of the wayfarer, and Alhamdulillah we had tawfiq to study this completely, and it's available. We started for the people who are on the Patreon of Islamic mysticism, and then recently, a few months ago, I made it available so everyone can see this section of Al-Isharat wa Tanbihiyat. Al-Mabda' wal-Ma'ad, another book. Uyun al-Hikmah, Danishnameh Alai. Some of his books are in Farsi, but most of it are in Arabic. Al-Qanun fi Tib, in medicine, and many other books. Wildorant, in History of Civilization, says that after they started printing books in Europe, the first book on medicine by a European, scientist was printed and had 3,000 times reference to Ibn Sina. The first book printed on medicine in Europe had 3,000 references to Ibn Sina. So now you can understand his position. He was authority in medicine. Although we know him more for other things, but he is also very well known for medicine. Now some people are trying to revive his medicine. His book on medicine was taught in medical schools in Europe for centuries. So he's such a great scholar. Is he a Shia or not? This is a question that we need to address. I a little bit expand on this from other sources. Ibn Sina says that his father and brother were Ismaili. So they were Shia, but not 12ers, his father and brother. He says they were Ismaili. And also it appears that his father also wanted him to be Ismaili, was encouraging him to be Ismaili. But from some places in his work, it seems that he was 12er. For sure, he believed in superiority or afdaliyya of Amir al-Mu'mineen. He believed that Amir al-Mu'mineen was higher than other companions of the Prophet. In Mi'raj Nameh, on the margin of Ilahiyat al-Shifa, he says something that is very interesting, and Ayatollah Jawadi Amuli Hafazahullah sometimes refers to this saying of Ibn Sina. He says the position of Amirul Mu'mineen compared to other companions of the Prophet was like ma'qul in contrast to mahsus. For philosophers, this says a lot. Mahsus is the lowest level of existence. Ma'qul, in what is intelligible, it's higher. So he says Amirul Mu'mineen was compared to other people like ma'qul versus mahsus. He also says that Amirul Mu'mineen was told by the Prophet, O Ali, when people work hard, that through acts of worship and ibadah get closer to God, you should try to get closer to God by understanding ma'qul, by thinking and intellectual approach. He quotes this. He had the idea that designation, nas, means appointing by designation, not by selection of people or election, etc. He had the idea that Imam should be designated. He says this is better because this avoids division and separation. As you know, the Shia believe that Imam must be appointed, must be designated. One of the very early writers, Sadruddin Ali ibn Fadlullah Gilani, who was a physician, tabib. He was contemporary to famous philosopher Mir Fendersky. He has a book, توفيق التطبيق في إثبات أن الشيخ الرئيس من الإمامية الاثني عشرية. So he argues in this book that he was a twelver. The late Sayyid Muhsin Amin in A'yan al-Shi'a also discusses Ibn Sina as a Shia scholar. In any case, there is discussion whether he was a twelver or Ismaili, etc. But the weight of evidence for him being a twelver is more. So in this way, we have completed, alhamdulillah, the history of the Shia in the 4th century and 5th century. Inshallah, bi'iznillah, we start another section of the book, inshallah, in the next chapter. Alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen.
Allahumma salli ala